being able to use his nuclear option. And it's not nuclear weapons. It is the sale of oil with other currencies. This is why we've been dumping the dictators, folks. Putin has entered in and has guaranteed Assad the protection that we guaranteed Saudi Arabia. By the way, Mitt Romney was right about Russia. For whatever reasons you may not have wanted to support Mitt, and for whatever reasons that you may have had legitimately. He was right about Russia, and Russia is staring us in the face. You think, when I heard George W. say, I looked him in the eyes, and what did he say after that? I saw integrity or something like that. Well, what he saw was a permanent dedication to win. And he misunderstood about it being integrity. Integrity's got nothing to do about it. Putin will put everything forward to dismantle this country. And he wants to use his nuclear option. His nuclear option is selling oil in something other than US dollars. Now, I'm going to try to help myself to understand, and then so dragging you folks along. I'm sorry to have to do that, but it's something that I'm very concerned about. And you've got your reasons to be concerned, and I've got 11 of them. They're my grandchildren. My children will probably pretty much be able to weather this storm, but my grandchildren will not. Without proper remedy, and you heard about Israel discovering all of that oil. And you heard about who owns the discovery. Dick Cheney, the Rothschilds, and Rupert Murdoch. And I wonder how many other co-owners are there. And here's what worries me about that. When producing oil, lickety split everywhere, becomes the weapon that brings down Putin, what happens to the dollar? See, because if they start pumping all the oil that we know is there, the Alaskan slope. What is that Gull Island Tim used to tell us about? It's real. Gull Island, they can't control the amount of oil. They don't corral it and sell it.
Prudhoe Bay.
Prudhoe Bay.
Prudhoe Bay.
We have so much oil, but it is in the dollar's interest to keep it out of production. That's why we have to make sure we buy oil from over there, because they are selling the oil in US dollars. Because if they don't, and all of those dollars that this fellow said is more dollars outside the United States that are in the United States, if those dollars start coming back to the Treasury and we start having to honor them, that's called spiraling deflation. The dollar collapses. And that's why I talk about 10 circles of 10. It is a catastrophe that we cannot control. We can only prepare for it. And it will be a temporary thing, because these two oceans that have given us protection over all of these years will once again protect us. Because we will find out a way, Americans will rise to the occasion. It has never been a time in the history of America where we haven't, and we will again. But we need to have a temporary place that we can sustain until the answers are understood by all Americans. That's the 10 circles of 10. And I think even churches can be a circle. And then another church can be a circle. And they can unite in 10 circles, and you can have a virtual co-op. And I think it's going to be so necessary, because what we see going on over there right now, in the cover-up in Benghazi, folks, the emails, it's all about Benghazi. It's all about traitors that we've elected and sent to Washington. It's Democrats and it's Republicans. It is on both sides of the aisle. They have given up their integrity. They have sacrificed everything good and honorable in this country to get an edge. Sometimes it's a personal gain. Sometimes they are promised a promotion. But they have all... When we had the Iran deal, the Corker Amendment, folks, when we didn't have the folks that we worked hard to send up there, and they weren't screaming to the top of their lungs about the advice and consent clause being violated, being turned on its nose, I say those people are facilitating the bringing down a constitutional process. And there's only one thing in the way of a one world order, or a one order for the entire world, a one government for the entire world, a one currency for the entire world, and a one religion for the entire world, there's only one answer to that. You have to kill the Constitution. Because the Constitution creates sovereignty for a country that has religious freedoms. I don't like calling them liberties. They're freedoms. And that has to go. You don't get to have... And by the way, there's not going to be an Islamic caliphate in the world. Because I believe communism and Islam are water and oil. They do not mix. If you do some study on that, you will find out that I'm right about it. But just as we did when Pearl Harbor happened, the American people clamored to get in and get involved in the war, and that made us willing. It made us willing. We rescued England from Hitler, and from that we created the Marshall Plan, Secretary of State, and we went in there and made those greenback dollars very relevant everywhere we rebuilt a country. And from that, those dollars were backed by gold, and from that, because our debt machine that all of us have been fighting so much against, because the debt, raising the debt ceiling, the social programs, the entitlements, all of the things that we've been talking about as conservatives that we need to get a hold of, we haven't got a hold of. And all of those things have caused that dollar to be inflated. And we no longer, as Nixon and Kissinger realized, when France wanted all of their gold back, because the gold backed those inflated dollars, and they knew we were spending too much, they wanted to go back, we couldn't give it back, so we dumped the Bretton Woods Agreement. And what took its place was the petrodollar. That's what you see going on that I've shown you with these videos. The petrodollar is what they're fighting over. China, Russia, Iran, and Syria want a basket of currencies to sell oil. When it becomes the right move to diminish their holdings in the oil that they don't want idiotic oil to become known either. They want it just scarce enough to keep the price of barrel of oil to about $70 a barrel. That's where they can continue to buy the weapons, make their empires. But see, we can control that by pumping the oil. This discovery of oil in Israel is not Israeli oil. The company, Dick Cheney, Rothschild, and Rupert Murdoch own this. Why aren't they pumping it? They didn't just discover it. They're considering it, using it as the nuclear weapon that Putin wants to use on us. If we can diminish the price of a barrel of oil, their empire falls. Think about it. Because they're funding everything they're doing. ISIS is funding the purchase of those guns, bullets, and Toyotas by the profits that they're making from that petrodollar, the oil. And the the international military-industrial complex is making tires everywhere, guns everywhere. Think about this, folks. And I'm not the best messenger in the world, so I beg your time to try to understand what I'm saying. Joe, what if I woke up one day and found out that the rubber plant, the tires that you were making, carried the machine gun that killed my grandson in a foreign war? Are we really, as Americans, supposed to have to think through those things? They're driving Toyotas over there, folks. There is no Toyota plant in Iraq, nor Syria. I doubt very seriously that there's one anywhere over there. So through the Benghazi fiasco, through the Hillary Clinton treasonous traitor actions of this government and the upper echelons of our elected officials, both sides of the aisle, and I'm going to mention some names, because I have no fear. I ought to be afraid, but I don't. Why did Mike Rogers resign? Used to think he was one of those guys that we worked hard for. I'm asking why. There's a couple, I don't know why. But I know you don't resign the highest, one of the most respected seats in the legislature. What I do know is that Mike Rogers' wife was the CEO, and this is very important, folks, of the security company in Benghazi. They kept clamoring for more help. In her defense, they kept asking the administration to send more help. But what I think is when the facts are out, I was going to be a little more graphic, But when the facts are out, when the FBI releases these emails, it's going to expose an awful lot of people. The rats are jumping off the ship. Why is it that nobody is running to this title of the third in line to the most powerful seat in the whole world? The Speaker of the House is third in line. Why is everybody rejecting it now? Simply because we sent some people up there with spines, and we've got about 40, 45 votes that's going to block the established Republicans from controlling it, the Boehners and the Boehner Lights. That's why McCarthy resigned. He couldn't get the votes, and that's because of you folks. People like you all across this country sent people there, and we even sent one there on foot, with a bike a little bit. He's going to be calling in. But that really does have to do with what they're seeing. Kim? Speak loud.
Back in 1971 to 75,
1971 through 75.
my uncle Randy Garrett was in the United States Army, and he was stationed at Fort Knox. Now, during that time, I remember him telling stories to family about tons of gold. Gold would leave Fort Knox. I wonder where the gold went and who has our
It's in
gold.
China. It probably took a long route around, but it's in China. We don't have the gold. That's why we went on the petrodollar bargain. That's why we went off of Bretton Woods. We could not guarantee the paper currency with gold anymore. And by the way, folks, it's why you better be buying silver. If you think that we have to get through a transitionary time, don't put your hopes in gold, and I'll tell you why. Because every government in the world, it wants gold right now because they know that this petrodollar is going to collapse. And if they're holding gold, they can back their currencies with gold. But you had better buy silver. You had better buy silver because you're going to get gold confiscated. And we know it can happen, right? How do we know it happened? It can happen because it did happen. Okay, this is not conjecture. FDR confiscated gold. It had to be just jewelry or what is called numismatic. And I had a hard time saying that for a long time. Numismatic, that's collector's gold. If it was gold bullion, you had to turn it in for a value predetermined. But they won't do silver that way because countries are not going to back their currencies with silver. Gold is going to be taken from you, folks. So count on silver. Another thing I wanted to bring to your attention. Remember the fellow said that they still know Syria has weapons of mass destruction? Syria doesn't have the nuclear weapon. They have the biological and chemicals. You know what? We were unwilling. Now think of this. When we went into Iraq, we were unwilling to call those weapons of mass destruction, the chemicals and biologicals. And when I wrote the piece, when Johnny Comes Marching Home, and John Tomlinson was here, and he sat on them setting charges, and he looked at them saying, from the United States, there's a consequence to our action of trying to covertly prop up the U.S. dollar, petrodollar, because that's what that was all about. That's why Saddam Hussein had those weapons of mass destruction. See, it wasn't that we didn't know he had them. We knew he had them. We just wanted him taken out for another reason. And they apparently wanted to say, well, it was a mistake. He never had weapons of mass destruction. Yes, he did. We sold them to him illegally, by the way. When George Bush Daddy was CIA director, through an effort, folks, an honorable effort, so it may be, to prop up the petrodollar by defeating Iran because they took our hostages and they're selling their oil in something other than U.S. dollars back at that time. And in an attempt to prop up Saddam Hussein to go to war with the Ayatollah, we enabled him with those chemical weapons and the weapons of mass destruction. And those are the same ones, folks, that Assad has right now. The same ones. Because we got satellite pictures showing trucks going from Iraq to the Baqa Valley in Syria, to where Russia, you heard Russia has been in alliance with Iraq to get those out of there. And they did, and they took them to Syria, where they knew they were going to be alive. See, the petrodollar has caused a lot of misalignments over there. Remember, there was a time when Russia was backing Iraq, and America was backing Iran. Remember that? Well, the Shah. The Shah was our dictator. We loved our dictator. Our dictator over there, our iron-fisted dictator, would kill, would maim, the people, the Islamic people of the Republic of Iran, to keep them at bay. That dictator, in the interest of selling that oil in US dollars, that's our national interest. That's what's going on all over there right now. It's in our national interest to become the hegemon there. Folks, I honestly believe that we're giving up on becoming the hegemon there. This battle, the lines that Obama is willing to draw and never back up, yes he does, he backs up. He draws a line and backs up. He doesn't back up the line, he just backs up. He puts it in reverse and backs up. What he is doing is diminishing America across the whole world. We are no longer the hegemon, folks. We cannot support the petrodollar. It is going to collapse. So when that happens, what will we do? What will we do while this country recovers, and it will, but it will be the revolution that Revelation failed to hold off. If the revelation that we continue to talk about and we continue to try to do, God bless Denise, Bill, and John Taylor, and the folks like them who are still trying to bring the Republican Party back. But there's not enough hours in their days and weeks to get this job done. You look at what's happening in Washington, and you look at the collisions that we're having here in the state, and the absolute frustration of a couple of representatives that couldn't hang on to their integrity. And that has really, folks, brought down the efforts of the Tea Party. But we're still sending people to Washington in the form of about 45 in the legislature. And I don't know how many in the Senate, but McConnell knows they're there. They're coming after him with pitchforks too. And I think this can get done. Now, Kerry Benvolio was supposed to call in at 9:30. We're not sure that he will. He was able. That was pretty good stuff. Okay, turn it on.